asked Paul F. O'Connell to come and talk with us today about the Low Input Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education Program, otherwise known as LISA. As Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Cooperative State Research Service, Dr. O'Connell administers the Special Programs Division, under which the LISA program falls. Paul O'Connell has been involved with LISA since its inception and has been instrumental in the development of what we believe is a uniquely structured and managed program. Many of the future benefits of this initiative toward a more sustainable agriculture then can be traced to Dr. O'Connell and the others who worked with him. Today is May 2nd, 1990. I'm Jayne MacLean, Coordinator of the Alternative Farming Systems Information Center at the National Agricultural Library. Jane Gates, the Assistant Coordinator, will ask Dr. O'Connell to share with us something about his background, career, and involvement with the LISA program. It's a pleasure to welcome you, Dr. O'Connell.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming out to NAL. You were saying it was a nice place to be. You should come more often.
Well, it's nice and quiet out here. You can get away from the phones. You can get some work done and concentrate and do some writing that I need to do more of. Nice place, beautiful place.
I agree. I'd like you to talk, if you would, a little bit about your own background, your beginnings, your personal history.
Well, I come from Minnesota, southern Minnesota, just south of Minneapolis, St. Paul.
A Midwesterner.
Oh, yes, yes. North Central State, North Star State, they called it when I grew up. And I remember they had a contest on the radio when I was growing up on a farm, and I was trying to think of the best way to name Minnesota, and they call it Theater of Seasons. And it has lots of seasons. You go very cold in the winter, very warm in the summer. But no, I grew up in a farm in southern Minnesota, a dairy farm, close right around Faribault, Mankato, Leesore, that particular area. And we had a mixed farming operation. Also, in addition to the dairy cows, we had some pigs and some chickens and cash crops. And so it was a 240-acre farm. And
diversified.
In fact, very diversified, yes. And I was there until in the early 50s. I went into the service, and then I went when I started college. And got my initial degree in basically dairy science, but primarily biochemistry. And then I went to Colorado and got a master's there in ag economics, and then I went to the Wharton School, got an MBA from the Wharton School.
The Wharton School is where?
In the University of Pennsylvania.
Ah, okay.
And then I got my PhD in forestry at the University of Wisconsin. But I didn't do those all in a row. I worked for a while and went back to school. I worked in the private sector for about 4 years with a dairy firm in St. Paul, Minnesota. And then went with the Economic Research Service for a few years. I was in Pennsylvania. And then from there I went with the Forest Service out to Tucson, Arizona. I was with the Forest Service a total of 14 years, actually. 6 years in Tucson, and a project leader for an economics project. Worked primarily on the economics of trade-offs between using forests for the traditional values of timber and rangeland, but at that time the concern about multiple use was coming along, and they were looking at water use and water runoff and wildlife values and all those sort of things. So I worked there as a project leader there for 6 years, and I went from there to assistant director at the Forest Products Lab in Madison, Wisconsin. Then I went from there, came into Washington, worked with the Forest Service for a while, and then when Orville Bentley came to town, I became his special assistant and worked with him for about 3-4 years.
That was under President?
That's under Reagan, yeah. And he came in about 81, I believe, and then I got involved with him with planning and worked directly with him for about 3 years. And the development of the Joint Council and just planning in general and setting policy and direction. And so I worked at the secretarial level basically for about 3-4 years. And then I went into the job that I have now.
Well, before we get into more about that, in looking back, Dr. O'Connell, which of the jobs do you really look back on with a great deal of fondness or affection, or
well, I think
feel like it molded your thinking?
Two things. I had an experience in the private sector for about 3-4 years, and so I learned how the private sector worked pretty well, and understood the bottom line and all that sort of thing. And but I always did have a kind of a natural resource bent, and probably my most enjoyable time earlier in my career was with the Forest Service. 6 years I was out in Tucson, Arizona. And I was able to develop basic economic analysis and social analysis so that we could look at ways to manage the forest to not only meet the needs of timber needs and range needs, but to the wildlife, recreation, water, and really kind of look at ways that we can manage this resource in a manner that would satisfy many more people. And I was right in the middle of that for about 6 years. I enjoyed that tremendously. In fact, I would not have wanted to leave. But the Forest Service, in their wisdom, decided that I should go to Madison. But I enjoyed that tremendously, and in my recent career, I've tremendously enjoyed what I'm doing now.
Well, just for the record, did you acquire a family along the way?
Oh yes, yes. I have 4 children, and have all done quite well. I got married back in after I got out of the service back in I can't remember the year now, 57, I guess, 56. And but 4 children, all growing up, all making their own money, which is the most the best time of any parent. I don't care what anyone says. It's when they get out making their own money. And we've been very fortunate. My older daughter is a medical doctor, OB/GYN. She's practicing medicine now in Madison, Wisconsin. And my oldest son is a CPA. He's out in Phoenix, Arizona. And my second son is a computer programmer working in the Washington area. And my younger son sells computer equipment. So. And
is he also here in
this
area?
Yes, he's working in the Rockville area. Yes.
And you've been here?
I've been here now going on 12 years in the Washington area, which is longer than I anticipated by a long ways.